Okay, let's talk about the proposed deal between Broadcom, Taiwan Semiconductor, and Intel. The discussion for all this started because Wall Street Journal a few days back came out with a possible deal where Broadcom will take over Intel's design assets and Taiwan Semi will take over their manufacturing facilities. So this is a deal with far-reaching implications for the entire semiconductor industry, for whatever work which is taking place in important areas like AI, and also for US economy. So let's do an analysis and discuss who stands to gain, who stands to lose, and what are the other implications. So as usual, the reminder, this is not financial advice, so please verify the data before you use it. The primary purpose is educational. So how it all started. Sometime back, Wall Street Journal published a report about possible takeover of Intel's design units by Broadcom and the chip manufacturing facilities by TSMC. And as you may know, because Intel is an integrated device manufacturing company, so they not only do the design as they have done it for the x86 chips, which we use in our PCs, they also do the manufacturing. So they do end to end. They are one integrated unit. They're not fabless or anything of that sort. So they that keeps it. And this is something which has helped them in a big way. But at the same time, in the over the last 10 years, they have really struggled to keep pace with how markets have moved. Especially, while we all know their success on the PC side of things, they pioneered the Moore's law. They kept on launching new chips from 1990 onwards and totally dominated the PC space, the PC motherboard. But as the markets gradually shifted away from PCs, first with mobile, with the launch of iPhone and the mobile devices, then it got into crypto, then AI. They haven't, they have not been able to kind of dominate those places. So other competitors like Nvidia have really, left them far behind in those areas, and this creates a big problem for Intel because they have huge amount of fixed expenses through their foundries, and and the foundry losses, it gives them less flexibility, and so they have been losing money, and at some point in time, if they don't do anything, they will run out of runway. And we all know that in December they fired their CEO, and they have now two co-CEOs at the helm, and I'm sure they are looking at strategic options. What are the long-term options before the things become too bad. So so this so in this context, Wall Street Journal came out with this particular concept of a deal, and so let's look at each of the three players and what do they stand to gain or lose from this part, and what is the impact on other players who will directly or indirectly get impacted. So if you look at Broadcom, so Broadcom of course came into prominence through its chips, the custom chips. Especially they started with mobile, and then they got into data center side of things through the acquisition of VMware, which was a $60 billion acquisition. And just for context, data center is a big market, especially about close to $1 trillion market, growing at maybe 20-25%. And they have actually, through their custom chips, they have figured out a way to get into that particular space. So they don't have a full solution, but if they are able to acquire Intel's design IPs, they will get into that particular space. So they will become much more formidable player, much more stronger player if they are able to acquire Intel's assets. They can pose a serious challenge to Nvidia. But at the same time, it doesn't come without risks. There any M&A, there will be integration challenges that will come under regulatory scrutiny. But at the same time, because of that VMware acquisition, they have a huge, significant debt on their balance sheet. So for this, if they want to go ahead with this particular deal, they will have to further take on debt. I know there will be financial requirements and so on, which is fine because they are generating 17, $18 billion of free cash flow. But and everybody is still in have all the hyperscalers like Google, Microsoft. They are still going to the, continue with the commitments on the capex. But if those some of those assumptions change, that the data center, there is some slowdown on that particular data center infrastructure area, that can become a challenge. But uh, given where things are today, they will be able to kind of finance and meet their debt obligations if they continue on the current trajectory. That is the assumption. TSMC, of course, it's a way for them to circumvent the potential traffics because they have been kind of started working on their manufacturing facility in US. They are augmenting their capacity here, but at the same time, uh, Intel is an icon. It's an American icon. It has been one of the most respected, one of the most important US companies for a very long time. So there will be kind of some concerns about national security that such an American icon shouldn't be taken by a foreign company. And again, the foundries, the integration, there are different manufacturing units. So how exactly that will tie into each other? How will you dovetail these two things? And while their balance sheet has less debt, there might be needs for financing here as well. So should they? So there will be considerations like should they go alone or should they go as part of a consortium to take over these assets? For Intel, of course, it's this kind of deal. If it happens, it will ensure survival because sooner or later, because of the fixed costs, the company might become into trouble. So this will be one way to get out of that challenge. And I'm sure, kind of based on the reaction, what we have seen in the Intel stock price, this might be a good thing for Intel stockholders because they can get a better exit if they choose to do that. And then again, Intel can also focus on R&D, new products, and so on. So they can become fabless. So they are less. They don't have to worry about all the foundry and the capital expenditure which any foundry requires. So they can they can sharpen and focus and get into different growth areas. So impact on competitors. Initially, of course, there will be turmoil in the market, so competitors will gain. But in long term, this has potential to create an option. Uh, it can challenge Nvidia's dominance because the Broadcom and Intel, if they combine their CPU, GPU, and the custom chip stack, it will be pretty interesting. AMD can lose control to some extent on the supply chain because they also use TSMC, so they're dependent on them. So there can be certain things, but nothing major at that point in time. Qualcomm and Apple and other chip manufacturers can get more manufacturing capacity within US, so which will be a good thing. For hyperscalers, on the face of it, yes, more capacity options to Nvidia. They can it can reduce the dependency on Nvidia, which will be good. But at the same time, TSMC, it will increase their pricing power. So something which they will be watching very closely. So a lot of impact across the industry, across big players, some direct, some indirect, but everybody across the industry, trust me, will be watching this development if this deal moves forward. Impact on the economy, yes, potential job losses, but again, reshoring is there. In Washington, people will be watching it. In China, they will be watching it, and it will be interesting to note their responses. So, how it impacts innovation, how it impacts pricing. So, it will be a deal with far-reaching implications. We just can't. I know I'm repeating that point again and again, but something to watch out for. So finally, uh, one of the potential is that Broadcom can become a credible NVIDIA rival in this particular case, and for TSMC, more capacity, more presence in the US market, and but at the same time, a lot of regulatory financing and integration risks are definitely there because this is a huge deal, and so all of us will be watching it very closely. Thank you for watching this. Goodbye.